Before term limits were imposed on the presidency by constitutional amendment, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was our longest-serving president, elected 4 times in a row. He died in the 13th year of his presidency, nearly 12 weeks after his 4th inauguration. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the most innovative practitioner of government in American history, led the country out of the Great Depression of the 1930s and led this country and our allies to victory in World War II as the most successful war president in American history. The most famous thing Franklin Delano Roosevelt ever said, the line that has lived after him, is the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. He did not say that at the beginning of World War II. He said that on the very first day of his presidency in his first inaugural address. And 100 days later, Franklin Delano Roosevelt had accomplished more in the American presidency than any previous president. He changed our relationship to government, and he did not do that through executive order. He did that through legislation that he suggested to Congress, or in some cases wrote for Congress, and by scrupulously following constitutional process in those remarkable first 100 days that have since then become a benchmark for all presidents. Franklin Roosevelt pulled the country through its darkest period since the Civil War. It is impossible to describe in the brief time we have on this program just how much fear there was in America the day before Franklin Delano Roosevelt became president of the United States. Our next guest, Jonathan Alter, has done the best job of describing that fear that I know of in his classic book, The Defining Moment, FDR's 100 Days and the Triumph of Hope. Before President Roosevelt took the oath of office, the American banking system was on the verge of collapse, and everyone knew that. Everyone feared that they could wake up tomorrow and discover any money they had in banking accounts was just gone. People were afraid to deposit money into banks and were hiding it under their mattresses. To save the banking system, one of the things President Roosevelt had to do was to convince people to deposit their savings in banks and to convince people that their savings would be safe in those banks, and your bank accounts are insured tonight by the federal government, thanks entirely to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who decided that the government could and should eliminate that fear, the fear that you could lose all of your money in your bank account, by creating the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. And that was just one of the many things President Roosevelt did in those first 100 days in the face of the fear that America was feeling. When President Roosevelt was inaugurated, there was widespread belief that the country needed a dictator to get out of the economic hole that it was in. And even some Republicans were sympathetic to the idea of allowing the Democratic president to have dictatorial powers in that darkest hour. President Roosevelt heard those urgings toward dictatorship and did exactly the opposite, working with Congress and the constitutional process of legislation and winning not just Democratic votes in Congress, but also many votes in the opposing Republican Party on many of his country-saving ideas. In Jonathan Alter's Washington Monthly column comparing Donald Trump's first 100 days to President Roosevelt's first 100 days, Jonathan Alter writes, in his first 100 days, Trump hijacked Roosevelt's famous line and essentially said, the only thing we have to use is fear itself.